Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is still doing well, and welcome to today's bonus upload. Before we jump into it, a couple links. As many of you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, channel membership, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, and channel membership is in the description below. Merch displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help the channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It does not cost a cent. Click the like button, takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads I put out daily, click that bell icon, and folks, please leave a comment. Why? Well, because all of these things really do help the channel to continue to grow and go. And yes, folks, they definitely do matter. Now, everyone, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's jump in to today's bonus, shall we? Today's bonus is a gentleman who he lives in Athens County in a little village called Gloucester. And he is 58 years old. He has done 10 years in the military between the Army and the National Guard. Now, he is an avid hunter. He is familiar with all of the fauna in Ohio. He and I were talking for about 2 hours, and I need to kind of lay the setting for you. It's a very strange experience that he had. It is violent and sad as well. I've never heard an encounter like this. I've heard of them being tactical, but during this experience, there's something that I've never heard. Anyway, he was in Wayne National Forest, and there is a cemetery called Salem Cemetery. He had been hiking most of the day using the Long Ridge Trailhead. He has 2 dogs, 2 foxhounds, and they were very loyal and very protective. He said that they were probably the best dogs he's ever owned in his life. Now, they were not aggressive, but they were very protective. He made that known. So he had hiked most of the day, and he had went around this area called Lake Vesuvius, just hiking, having a great day. This is about 3 weeks ago. He said as he was hiking, he went off course just to get the dogs running a little. He has a extended lead, one that extends out to about 100 feet. He's got both in one hand. Now, he's in the woods. His dogs are pretty smart. He said they're about 4.5, 5 years old. They are of different breeds. They're not brother and sister, but they have been raised together. One's older than the other. And so he is off of this road called Salem Hollow Road, southeast, going towards Salem Cemetery. He'd been hiking for a couple of hours at this point. There's some, I guess, dilapidated buildings in that region. What looked to be like, he had me look it up, what looked to be kind of like a couple of brick and mortar walls with what looked like gates, cast iron gates. So when he gets to this area, he's been here numerous times. This is a hike that he does. He's divorced. He's got nothing else to do when he's not working. So he hikes a lot. Weather's nice. He likes to exercise his dogs. This is where things get really strange. And I'm going to have a hard time wording it, but he's walking the dogs and he comes to this area and he hears this very strange kind of growl and like a panting noise. His dogs have now perked up. They're looking around like, what's going on? He can tell that whatever is making this noise is really close to him. He is kind of rounded the corner to where this, I guess, old building was. He doesn't know what it is. He's, asked a couple people, and there's been, different, how things are when, there's an old structure. People will say it's this, it's been that, it was this. He thinks that it was like a smelting plant back in the day. He's not really sure. As he rounds this corner, he pulls the lead in, the retractable lead. The dogs are now 10 to 15 feet in front of him. He's got them in each hand now and walking so he can have more control. He rounds this bend and he sees what he assumes at first are two huge wolves. He is looking at them going, what's going on? These things are huge and they are mating. Now, obviously, we have heard about dogmen having pups. I've really never heard of an encounter of someone seeing them mate. He said they were like in a position of a normal dog. When he sees them, these two creatures look over at him, he can see that they are obviously not wolves, not any kind of dog that he's ever seen. They're huge. He said even in the position that they were in it looked like two humans mating, but how dogs do. They turn and look at him. He then turns back the way he had come from, and he's starting to head back the way he had just come from. He's trying to get out as fast as possible. His dogs are, of course, acting like dogs would. They want to see what the heck's going on. His two dogs are kind of aggressive towards other dogs. So he's just like, we need to leave. These are not dogs. These are something that I've never seen before. I've heard of, but anyway. He gets probably a half a mile away. And he's like, okay, I'm good. I'm far enough away. He's probably 200 yards from Salem Cemetery. He said that as he's rounding this bend to get back onto Salem Hollow Road, he hears this ruckus. He said it sounded like two bulldozers just plowing through debris, old brush, just really coming at him. Now, he automatically assumes that it's what he had just seen about 15 minutes ago, you know. The dogs now have turned and they are frantic. They're smelling in the air. They're howling like beagle foxhounds do. And he sees one of them come out of the woods first. He can still hear the other one coming behind him, coming behind to where he is. He then has both dogs, both hands, both leads like this, and the one Dogman runs in front of his dogs and goes kind of to lead the dogs away, to pull him or whatever. He's thinking, as we're talking, that they are tactically trying to separate him and the dogs. And that's exactly what happened. So as he's trying to control his dogs, this Dogman ran past him, and his dogs are now focused on the Dogman that ran past him. He's focused on his dogs, but he's also focused on what's coming up behind him. He is armed. He is armed with a Glock 20, 10 millimeter. And the dogs are pulling at him. He's got too much going on at one time. He has two choices. He holds on to his dogs, and this creature comes and gets him from behind, or he lets go of his dogs and pulls his sidearm. He does the only logical thing. He lets go of his dogs. As he lets go of the dogs, he has seconds to pull his sidearm. He pulls his sidearm and turns and takes a firing stance and shoots the dog that's coming at him. It is snarling at him. I asked him, I said, well, obviously we know they were mating. Do you know which is which? He said, the one that ran in front of me was huge. He said, I assumed that it was a male. The one that's coming at me is probably 6.5, 7 feet tall, right? It is running full bore at him. He turns, takes firing stance, and shoots. He said he didn't unload the full mag. He shot 4 times. He shot center mass twice and raised. He believes he shot it in possibly the neck and face. He knows he shot it in the face once. He doesn't know if the third shot that he believes he went up. He said center mass and went up, which, you know, talking to this guy and getting a feel of his knowledge of firearms and stuff like that, I really think that he came off as a very good shot. He wasn't bragging. He wasn't, you can tell. For those people who go to the range and shoot, you can tell who is full of crap and who's not. I purposely don't talk about my range time. I don't talk about my shooting ability. It's my business and my business alone. You know, that's how I feel about it. I think that people who come off braggadociously are a fraud. You know, there's no need to display or whatnot, you know. It's the way I feel, and I'm sure a lot of you who are shooters and enjoy shooting at the range will agree. So as he takes his shots, the creature kind of makes this weird moan. And he said as it turned, it started running. He saw that it had male genitalia. And it took off almost the way it come. And it wasn't running as fast or as well as it was. At this time, he's now focused on his dogs. During the shoot, he can hear his dogs are now in a fight. They're engaged in some kind of fight. He starts running towards where he believes his dogs are. He sees this other Dogman. It actually had the lead in its hand. He said, you know, Jeff, I don't know how it could close its hand and make a grasp because of the nails it had, but it did. And he said, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. It was so intelligent that it knew that this lead was controlling my dogs. And it had, you know, he had already, the Dogman had already killed one of his dogs. It was dead. And it was still holding on to the leads. Not by the handles, but by the cord, the wire, the plastic coated wire. The other foxhound is in bad shape. It's whining, it's cowering on its side, you know, just trying to get up. It sees his master, and at that point, we had to take a break because he's in tears. He said that when he saw his dog the way it was, he made two split decisions. I looked at my other dog and I knew it was dead, and there was no way that no matter the amount of money that I was going to be able to save my other dog. It was in pain. It was dying. The Dogman was not killing. It didn't. These things are so sick. They are almost like sadistic serial killers, the way he explained it. He said that it was just almost torturing it. He said, I stopped dead in my tracks. I fired. I put my dog down out of its misery. He said, before this other Dogman could turn, he said, I shot twice in its back. And as it turned to loop around at him, it kind of dropped. He said, at first, I'm thinking maybe I severed its spinal cord. But it dropped onto all fours and turned to face him. He said I must have hit it in the shoulder or whatever. He's out of breath. He had just started running. He's, you know, really stressed out, and he's at a point of disbelief of what is going on. This is a park that he's used multiple times. He's been here multiple times. Never, ever has he seen or heard anything like this. This Dogman now is standing face to face with him. He says it's probably a good 4.5 to 5 feet at the shoulders. It looks at him. He's staring down. They are both staring at each other. He has got his bead on this dog, and he has got it trained directly in its face. He was going to mag dump on this creature right in its face. He said, I didn't have a better shot. He said, I was looking at, sternum. He said, he shot that one Dogman in the chest, and it ran, it hobbled. This one I just shot in its back. He goes, at first I thought I did shoot it in its spine, but when it turned and dropped to all fours, he goes, I knew I didn't. It was almost like those two shots didn't even matter with a 10 millimeter, which is strange. The Dogman looks at him. They're eyeing each other. It's snarling at him like a rabid dog. And it just takes off at him. He shoots 2 shots, but it's not running directly at him. So he shoots it in the side, and it just runs right by him. He knows both shots hit it, probably in the ribs. He's fouling, and he's watching this creature run by him. He said the strangest thing was I looked, and he goes, I don't know why I was drawn to look at its feet. But he said the back feet kind of were like this as it ran. Almost, it was like on its toes, running full bore. But the front feet were kind of cupped like that, like a paw, but a hand. And it was so fast that he doesn't believe it. He thinks that if he took another shot, that it would have just been a wasted bullet. The bullet probably would have just, it would have been a shot with no target. So it would have just been sailing in the air. And anyone with any kind of training or respect knows that he then goes to his dogs, looks at his dogs. They're tore up. He is trying to figure out what to do. He then calls the Ohio, he calls Athens Sheriff's Department. And at that point, they are trying to figure out where he is to send someone down to help him. He hasn't exactly told them what went on. So he notifies Athens County Sheriff's Department. He lets them know, hey, I am by the Salem Cemetery off of Salem Hollow Road Southeast. I need assistance. I was just attacked by a wild animal. My dogs are dead. A couple deputies come down. They are talking to him. He's not sure exactly what he should say. He does not want to be labeled crazy. So he's like, I don't know what they were. but they were large. They ran bipedally and quadrupedally, and they took rounds from my 10 millimeter. One of the deputies, they look at the dogs, they look at the scene. One of the deputies goes and calls county wildlife officers. And one of the wildlife officers comes out. At this point, he is sensing something's going on. The deputies have now started to treat him with how he didn't expect to be treated the way he was being treated after being attacked. His dogs are now dead. He had to put one of his dogs down. The county wildlife officer comes out and he says that you had just encountered two bear coming out of hibernation, and this is, what happened. You probably startled them, and this and that. He goes, these were not bear. He said these were something different. I don't know what they were, but they weren't bear. The deputy then starts to, they just drop everything about talking about what just attacked him and his dogs. And they start talking to him about his firearm. They take his firearm. They start to harass him about having to put down his dog, which you can clearly see was really badly wounded. There's only one. As a divorced man, he never had kids. His dogs were his kids, something that a normal person he's not a psycho, they're now giving him the runaround. They are really treating him like he's a criminal. No more mention of this bear attack. And they're saying you just wildly were shooting. You were wildly shooting at, these black bear. You shot your dog. We're arresting you. He was then arrested. And he was charged with cruelty to animals. He was charged with discharge of a firearm in state and federal land, both state and federal. So he got a ticket from the Department of Conservation, the conservation officer, and the county. They put his dogs, wrap his dogs up, and they are then brought to wherever. He's then responsible for a vet bill for the cremation of his dogs. And he's arrested, booked, whatever, released on his own recognizance, obviously. So this is where it gets even weirder. And I am now going, this is crazy. You are now you've now shared an encounter with me that I have never heard of a Dogman breeding, but obviously we know they do. I mean, we know they do. They have to. And now you are being treated like a criminal, which is even more disgusting. He's then he goes to court, and they fine him for shooting at they hit him with hunting while not during hunting season, whatever kind of ticket that was, even though he's shooting with a pistol and protecting himself, and everything else. Improper discharge of a weapon, cruelty to animals. He's fined and pretty much told by the conservation officer. The deputies didn't show up at court. The conservation officer did. Apparently, the judge and him and the DA had spoken. Fines were given, and as he's leaving the courthouse, the officer comes up to him and says, "You shot at bear. You know that's what you shot at. You know that's what killed your dogs. And you're lucky you're not in jail." Can you tell me where that's right? He is now charged with thousands of dollars because even though he didn't kill the bear, they are considered an endangered species, I guess, in Ohio, is what he was hit with. So then, as we're talking, I go online and I type in black bear breeding season, mating season. And it's somewhere between May and July. And there's a photo of two black bear mating. Very similar to what he described he had witnessed. And I said, listen, I'm not doubting you. I have to ask questions. I want to know, because I know that Ohio is a hot spot, and where he is in the location of Ohio, to me, would be a hot spot. I said, is this picture what you saw? And, sent him a screenshot. And he said, Jeff, this is not what I saw. I know what black bear is. I know how they look. I know how they run. I'm not. And I said, Mel, I'm not doubting you. I just want to, ask the question. I've got to ask the question. What you said, how it ran, matches up to how a Dogman would run. A black bear isn't going to run and lead you and your dog separate. They separated him. We're talking, and that's his whole experience, all right? He's still fighting tickets. He's still fighting everything. He was not given his dog's ashes, their remains, but had to pay for the cremation. Also, he's, paying all these fines. We end up talking a little bit after. Anybody who has done an interview with me knows that I just don't get the experience. I talked to you before, during, and after. I said, why do you think that it took so long for them to come after you if they were growling? And he said, Jeff, I thought about this. He said, let's just say that they are canine and have canine DNA mixed with whatever, or they are some type of canine that, whatnot. How do canines reproduce? Well, they're stuck for a long time. Maybe, he said, maybe my dogs and I surprised them. They were stuck. If anyone knows anything about canine reproduction, they get stuck during the process. Maybe that's what happened. That's why maybe it took so long for them to come back and track us down. Another interesting thing that I grasped from this whole thing is that the male was smaller than the female. So are these huge dogmen that we're seeing? He said that in the other one did not have male genitalia. He couldn't see any genitalia. He said, but he didn't see any breasts either. He saw what appeared to be nipples on both, but it was just a weird kind of structure that he was looking at. It was not a bear, and it was certainly a mixture of a canine and a human. Some type of whatever. Now, my question is, I'm wondering if that's how it works, if male dogmen are smaller than female dogmen. Or if it was just this breeding pair that's how it ended up being. An amazing guy, just a really nice guy. I really feel for him. He's going through it. He did get his pistol back. But it's just, this poor guy went out for a walk, something that he's done a couple hundred times before, stumbles upon this, has this tragic and horrifying altercation, and then gets treated like a criminal. He doesn't know if there's kind of a cover-up going on to where that conservation officer knew and just wants to keep it quiet or what, but he knows that he was wronged 100% by our government, by his local, state, federal, whatever, through the whole process. This guy is a victim all the way around. It's tragic. It's disgusting. So, there's another question. If we are attacked by a dogman or threatened by a dogman, Bigfoot, whatnot, do we have the right to shoot or not? Who's to say? Like I said to him, I said, this is crazy, because what if I'm in upstate New York hiking and I'm looking around looking for, clues about Tom Mezek's disappearance and this and that, and in New York State on the books is do not shoot Bigfoot. What happens if by chance a Bigfoot comes at me and I shoot him? Am I going to jail for murder? Am I going to get fined? This is not a joke. I'm not joking. These are questions we have to ask now. Do these things have rights? And I'm not, this is not a joke, because to me, what this guy went through is wrong 100%. And he really got wrung through the ringer. And there you have it, folks. I do hope you all enjoyed today's bonus as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you, and I'd like to thank you all for supporting the channel. It is, after all, your support that keeps the channel growing and going, and what gives us all a place and a chance to share our experiences and theories judgment-free. Everyone is simply treated with the respect that we deserve, and I too appreciate it, so thank you. Stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant, keeping an eye on our children, pets, family, and friends. These creatures are real. They are out there and dangerous. Share this information with those you love and care about, and it may just help save their lives someday. Until next time, never stop asking questions, never stop searching for the truth, and God bless.